So today I'm going to talk about something else. It's not about teaching English at all. Although I do come from a teaching background, an ESL background, and I used to teach at the university for several years in the Arab Gulf area and here in the UK. But recently I conducted a research study about Lebanon, which is my country as well. And I would like to share this study with you. It is about the challenges that teachers are facing in Lebanon recently. So the outline of the presentation actually will be as follows. I'm going to talk about the context of the study a little bit, and then I will take you to the literature review briefly, of course, because the literature is very ramified in this regard. And then I will tell you about the methodology that I use and my findings and the way forward. So the context of the study, as I told you, it is Lebanon. A report was published recently by ESQA and revealed that Lebanon, which was considered a middle-income country before 2019, now is no longer considered a middle-income country, and it is one of the poorest countries because the middle-income group has contracted from over 57% of the population in 2019 to less than 40% in 2020. And before 2019, parents used to send, because the capability, they were capable of paying tuition fees, they used to send their children into private schools, and we had more than 60% of the students going to private education in Lebanon. But of course, the unprecedented crises and what's happening in Lebanon affected the parents' situation, and we are realizing now an exodus to the public sector, which is unprecedented. So people in Lebanon and their families are suffering lately from 5 crises. The first crisis is conflicting political situation. We have also refugee crisis. We have the pandemic and the explosion of Port Beirut in 2020 and unprecedented economic and banking crisis. These unprecedented events in the modern history of Lebanon have affected the citizens' quality of life and well-being, including school teachers massively. Teachers in Lebanon can work either at public schools, or they can work at private schools, or they can work in both sectors if they want to, if they have time, of course, and they can manage in teaching in the private and the public sector. And schools hire teachers in Lebanon on 2 bases, contract basis and permanent basis. But of course, the public school differ in the criteria from the private school in hiring the teachers, and the salaries, of course, and the rights differ between the 2 sectors. But I want you to keep in mind that clientelism and clout play a very important role in the recruitment process in both sectors, in the private and in the public sector. So if we want to talk about the recruitment of the public sector, and we will start by permanent public school teachers, how they are ideally hired. Studies have shown that teachers, in order to be successful, they have to pass the civil service exam, which is considered or which is done every 5 years in Lebanon. And based on their results, they will be accepted to teach in one of the public schools as permanent teacher. Another factor which affects recruitment in the public sector is the religious distribution as well, which is followed in the governmental positions in Lebanon, in all the country as a whole. And public school permanent teachers, they are usually paid in Lebanon in the Lebanese currency, in the Lebanese pound, and their salaries were considered before 2019 good and their salaries as well include housing and transport, and they benefit from the National Social Security Fund, from end of service benefits, from educational allowance for their children, and they get a guaranteed job for life. And this was before 2019 again. As for contractual teachers, this type of hiring, it was introduced to the public education sector during the Civil War in 1975 because of the barriers that was set between the different Lebanese region at that time. But it continues until today. And usually sectarian and political considerations, as opposed to competence, were credited for the recruitment of many of the contractual teachers. Contractual teachers are paid according to the number of hours they teach per week, and they are not paid for official holidays or events when schools are closed, and they are not allowed to register with the National Social Security Fund, and they do not receive traveling grants or end of service indemnity. Their hourly rate is fixed and does not take into consideration any seniority or credentials. And they are paid in Lebanese pound, which has lost an estimated 90% of its value in 2021, making the contracted teacher's salary worth between $1 or $2 per an hour. However, this hourly wage got doubled in 2022 in response to several protests to become $5 per hour in addition to $5 per hour in addition to $90 per month, given as a social grant offered by the World Bank. As for private schools, as well, as I said, they do hire either on permanent basis or on contractual basis. But they do recruit graduates of private universities where the standards of teacher preparation programs are more rigorous than in the Lebanese university in terms of course content, foreign language proficiency, and internship experiences. Also, private schools, they pay higher salaries and they attract qualified teachers, and they have the freedom to terminate the contracts of mediocre staff. Well, here now the problem is that I give you an idea about how teachers are hired at private schools and at public schools. As I said, we have currently 5 crises, and several new recent studies conducted recently revealed that the income of most of the teachers in Lebanon was negatively affected during these crises. A report published by Hamoud et al. Showed that the teachers' socioeconomic status got deteriorated during the pandemic due to salary cuts, and this deterioration has affected badly the quality of education at schools. Therefore, the last 3 years, from 2019 to 2022, were full of challenges and difficulties in Lebanon, and this study attempted to uncover teachers' perception during these unprecedented times and to what extent the quality of life that the teachers are having and the challenges they are facing during these extraordinary times are affecting their dedication to work. My study is intended to actually address the following 3 questions. The first question is, how do different teachers working at either public or private schools in Lebanon describe the impact of the current crisis hitting the country and the educational sector? And second question is, what challenges are faced by both public and private school teachers? The third question is, to what extent are the school teachers in Lebanon managing during these extremely difficult times? As I said, the literature is very ramified, but for the purpose of this talk, I decided to only talk about few things. The first one is job satisfaction. As we all know, it is a major aspect that many school principals and management give big attention to both improve the quality of teaching and the school's efficiency. Studies showed that the importance of creating Studies showed the importance of creating a motivating work environment and positive school climate that is capable of meeting the teacher's intrinsic and extrinsic needs, which are deemed essential for teaching and success. By intrinsic, we talk about self-efficacy, self-growth, self-actualization, and autonomy. By extrinsic needs, we can talk about working conditions, about job security, about job salary, and availability of resources and teaching equipment. All of these factors affect job satisfaction. Also, I just want to talk briefly about the well-being in the educational field. Well-being has been described as an individual sense of personal professional fulfillment, satisfaction, and happiness, which can be either strengthened or weakened by contextual factors, and this fluctuation in return impacts the students' learning and well-being. Disasters, conflicts, and pandemics influence teachers' emotional well-being, and teachers should be stress-free and happy at work to teach efficiently and effectively. Teachers' unpreparedness to work in unexpected working conditions, whether during disasters or conflict, will affect their well-being and efficacy. Thus, staying sane, enthusiastic, and motivated is a key factor in fostering quality learning outcomes. A study conducted by one of my colleagues in 2022 in Palestine pointed out that the most challenging thing during the COVID-19 pandemic was maintaining the teachers' well-being and sanity in this highly demanding, unstable, and unsafe time. She emphasized that many teachers were under pressure to plan, organize, care, and teach under ambiguous situations, while at the same time taking care of their own family. Another study conducted in 2022 by Achan argued that teachers in Lebanon during the protracted crises had to deal with new obstacles, such as remote instruction, social distancing, and technologically driven contact with students and parents, as well as school co-workers and administrators during unprecedented and protracted crises. This is a new study, actually. All of this has increased the level of anxiety and stress and impacted the teacher's well-being and efficacy enormously. As for the methodology of my study, the study employed an interpretive paradigm. I was trying to interpret teachers' views and perspective in order to answer my research questions. It is qualitative in nature, and it employs two types of online semi-structured interviews with 11 Lebanese teachers working at the private and the public sector and teaching at any grade level from kindergarten to grade 12. The participants, the teachers, actually were recruited via a popular social media group for teachers, and they are all teaching in Lebanon. And ethical issues were, of course, all taken into consideration in accordance with the University of Exeter ethics framework. My findings. Schools and teachers in Lebanon are not all at the same pace, and teachers' experiences differ during this critical period. Prestigious fee-paying private schools, they adapted quickly and effectively to the new circumstances, but the teachers are not happy. Moderate fee-paying and semi-free private schools are taking time to adjust, and they are not happy as well. As for public schools, they have been suffering the most during this period because neither the students and their parents nor the teachers and their administrations are capable of handling the new situation with all what has been going on in the past 3 years. And please let me here explain something that I told you at the beginning. There are private schools and there are public schools, but private schools are also divided into three different types. We have the prestigious fee-paying private schools. We have the moderate fee-paying private schools, and we have the subsidized private schools, which are supported by the government. Okay, also the findings of my study showed that we have structural constraints affecting public school teachers particularly. Public school teachers were asked during the last 3 years to teach remotely from home without being asked if they have access to the internet or not. And the students as well, they were not asked if they have internet at home or not. The study revealed that most public school teachers, they did not have internet at home, and they depended on 3G mainly on their mobile phones to deliver the lesson. So the internet service in 2019 in Lebanon started to decline because the country's electricity prices increased because the government decided to lower its financial assistance on fuel. This issue caused long power cuts every day that affected online teaching negatively, especially for students who go to public schools who are mainly from low socioeconomic backgrounds. A school teacher from the south of Lebanon explained that public school students mostly do not have the internet at home, and many of them were borrowing 3G from their relatives and friends to attend their classes remotely. Also, many of the parents who send their children to public schools, they do come from low educational attainment level, and they don't know how to use technology. And many others are big in age with 5 or more children going to schools. All of them need devices and internet to attend the remote classes daily. So the structural constraints affected education and teachers a lot at public schools. Also, another finding is the lack of knowledge in conducting remote learning, especially at public and subsidized private schools. Public school teachers' ability to do remote learning varied between the public schools, and this depended mainly on each individual teacher. Also, subsidized private school teachers explained that the first year, which is 2019.
Tamara, please, could you please unmute yourself?
Okay.
That's great, thank you.
Okay. So subsidized private school teachers explained that the first year was very chaotic. Two teachers stated that the student and the teachers were not trained to use online programs, and when they started, the software used was not efficient. IDs were mixed up, and the teachers were mostly confused and experimenting most of the time. A teacher said the logistic for remote learning created a problem for many private subsidized school teachers who were suffering from the repercussion of the socioeconomic crisis. They needed to purchase small things like additional laptops for the whole family, strong internet connections, and uninterruptible power supply in case there is no electricity, and headphones to minimize the noise at home and allow others to work remotely as well. All of this has resulted in extra pressure on them and their family members who had to find their own ways to solve this issue out. And all of this affected the teachers a lot. Also, one finding is the security constraint. During the first 2 years, in 2019, 2020, and 2020, 2021, lots of security constraints affected the teachers' teaching plans. A teacher said nothing was predictable that years. Suddenly, we hear there is a strike and the roads get blocked immediately. We get stuck at school and our children get stuck at their schools. We are completely unsafe and worried about the situation. Another finding in my study is mounting stress and frustration, which is spreading among all the teachers. As a result, among all the teachers, not only the public and subsidized private school, but among all the teachers teaching in Lebanon in all the sectors. As a result of this aggravated confusion in the country and the education sector, many parents who send their children to fee-paying private schools decided not to pay the full tuition fees for the first 2 academic years, which are 2019-2020 and 2020-2021. And as a result, many private schools have reduced their salaries, and many others laid some teachers off. Additionally, many private and public schools are still paying the remaining teachers in the local currency, despite the depreciation in the currency, which I said before has lost 90% of its value. This issue affected teachers' ability to commute to and from school, and almost all the teachers interviewed stated that fuel prices have increased hugely and they can no longer find petroleum easily. They need to line up for hours to fill their cars up. One of the teachers said, we are carpooling with our neighbors. One day I drop them to school, the next day my neighbors drop us to school. Therefore, building on the above findings, which I tried to summarize them as much as possible, it has become clear that both public and moderate fee-paying private school teachers have been hit in the last 3 years, and they feel unvalued and underpaid, though with slight differences between the two educational sectors. Public school teachers are hit the most. Second comes the moderate fee-paying private school teachers and the subsidized private schools as well. As for prestigious private school teachers, they are still getting paid in dollars, but the whole atmosphere in the country is depressing them and affecting their well-being. If they need to travel, they need to wait for hours to fill the car with the fuel, just like other teachers. They depend on the government electricity, private generators, and solar panels for securing electricity and teaching remotely, and other issues as well in the country, which I will not go into right now. Okay, now the way forward from this study. This study has shown that Lebanon's education system is currently not fine. It is suffering drastically, including both the public sector and the private sector, though with slight changes depended on the funding available. Also, the teaching profession is no longer the reputable profession that used to be for a long time in Lebanon. Currently, it is causing stress and frustration to the teachers who have expressed their willingness to leave the profession and find better opportunities either locally or abroad. These findings are alarming and require as well policymakers to take an action. So my recommendations from this study is that policymakers in the Ministry of Education and Higher Education should embark on a serious reform plan as soon as possible to save those who are left in the teaching profession in the country, and to stop the brain drain and the exodus of many teachers by seriously tackling their challenges and difficulties. Also, the Ministry of Education and Higher Education should address the growing learning crisis and meet the increased demand for online teaching at public schools as a result of the protracted crises by involving the teachers in soft skill trainings, online teaching trainings, while maintaining their dignity and well-being to ensure equity and efficiency among all the schools and the students. And here are my references. So this is basically my study. I hope I gave you an idea about what's happening in the country, and I just wanted to share with you this presentation, hoping to tell you a little bit about what's happening in the educational sector in Lebanon. Thank you everyone for listening.
Thank
Thank you
you,
so
Tamara.
much.
Mhm.
Any
Well,
questions?
Well, yeah, can I just jump in and ask, while you were, only referencing and you did this study in Lebanon, there's a lot of things going on in the world. We can see Ukraine, we can see, Brazil, and, I'm an American, but I live in Europe. But, I always go home to visit my family. And the world of education, even in the United States, is in a turmoil right now because of politics. And what's going on there. Look what's happening in Brazil, and of course, Turkey, and that's going to affect a lot of teachers as well because of the earthquake. But what you talked about, goes beyond borders. The teaching profession is, very challenged today with so many things going on. And could you tell us what you've learned and what you talked about? How does that go beyond borders? What does it tell us about the teaching profession itself, and what's going on right now?
Yeah, what's going on right now? It's really to me, as someone who comes from an educational background and who has teaching experience, and I've been involved in teaching for several years with the children, I feel really so sad when I hear all what's happening, and I see the atrocities of the situation and what's going on. But we should not lose hope. There is always a way out. There is all the teachers should not lose hope. They should try their best to do what they can do. Although the situation was very difficult in the past 3 years in Lebanon, and the teachers are suffering massively, not only the teachers, all the people over there, because it affected the situation affected their income, their well-being. It has transcended a lot of things, but they should not lose hope, because education is the only hope for raising a country from its current situation. So hope is very important, and teachers should try their best to do their duties as much as possible. I know I might sound a little bit, a little bit. I might look like it is easy. I know it's not easy to overcome all what's happening in the country, and if I were there in Lebanon, and if I am in the same situation, it might be very difficult for me to overcome all the things that are happening and continue teaching. But we have to try. We have to keep on trying, because education is the best thing in a country to take it back from all what's happening.
Kids need to still learn. There has to be somebody there for them, and that's what we do as teachers. We're there for them. Yeah.
Of course.
And we got to keep learning going, no matter what the situation is. I know that I volunteer here in my city, and a lot of the people who came from Ukraine to this city, we provide them with housing, but those children have to go to school. And we just got a whole team of teachers there volunteering to help out, to get the kids, learning. And thank God that some of the people who came are teachers. So we got teachers there who are just working in unbelievable situations, but we got to keep going as teachers, no matter where we're at, because learning never stops and children need to learn.
Yeah, that's true. But the situation in Europe is not like the situation in the Middle East.
No.
No, there are other issues that are intervening in the teaching process. So I've realized that in Lebanon, there is very high dropout rates. Students are dropping out of the schools. They are no longer interested in continuing their education. And this issue wasn't there before 2019. So we are seeing a lot of critical issues that requires a lot of attention.
Mhm.
Students are dropping out of schools. Teachers are traveling, they are immigrating. So the profession now, the brain drain in the profession is also very critical because teachers are not well paid. Okay, they are barely finding their needs. They are leaving the country. They are finding better opportunities abroad, and they are leaving the educational sector empty. We have
Mhm.
gaps. We have a lot of gaps. So
Mhm.
it's not easy.
Yeah,
What's
it's
happening?
well, I think it's easier to realize it, to see that it's happening, but finding solutions, that's not easy. That's very difficult, I
Situation
think.
is critical. Yes.